there is a lot of whining, as I've mentioned many a time here on the show so far, about what happened to the SEC and what happened specifically to Alabama. But what's ironic about all of this is that the rallying cry that you're basically hearing from them is, well, it's not fair. Things are not fair. It's very ironic to hear the haves of the college football world complaining about how things are not fair because Alabama got left out in favor of SMU, because the SEC only has 3 teams in. College football has always been unfair. Newsflash to any Alabama fans out there, or Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama, or Greg Sankey, obviously the commissioner of the SEC. College football has never, ever, ever, ever been fair. Inequity has been a staple of college football. And in a lot of ways, that's a part of what makes us love the sport and creates the endless arguments that we always have about the sport. But why you're seeing all this complaining about it right now is because of the simple fact, as I said earlier, ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. And the rabbit has the gun here. The SEC does not have it. So you're getting complaining about SMU. You're getting complaining about auto buys for the conference champs. I have seen a lot of that. You guys know I really like and respect Josh Pate. I listen to him a lot. He complains about that frequently, that we're giving auto buys to the top 4 conference champs, which means Boise and Arizona State both get an auto buy. I mean, hell, if you were watching the college football playoff selection show earlier today, you heard Reese Davis say this. Reese Davis, Reese Davis, his role on there is the straight man. He's not supposed to be giving a bunch of opinions. Like, he's the point guard, leading things in and out. He's not the guy dunking or shooting. He's distributing. He is the straight man there. And yet, he dropped in this comment. I think everybody hopes this is just a one-year thing. Just seed them by ranking. Don't give the automatic buys to the champions. Reese Davis, the guy doing the show on ESPN, put that out there. Greg Sankey got to him fast, man. I mean, you guys thought Big 12 overlord Karen a couple of years ago was getting to me fast with all the talking points for the Big 12 SEC stuff. No. Greg Sankey's got everybody on speed dial, man. If he had Reese Davis doing that during the show, that's crazy. So what a Reese Davis would want, what a Josh Pate would want here is you would have 1 through 4 with the buys being Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Penn State. And instead, they have to live with Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State. That's the crime against humanity that we have there. A lot of complaining as well about Oregon having debatably a tougher road with the 1 seed than Penn State with the 6 seed, depending on how you view the actual value of a bye. And that one, I can at least understand a little bit more. I understand the point that you are making with that. Does that seem a little bit unfair to Oregon? Yes, I can level with you and say that that does seem a little bit unfair to Oregon. But I go back to my original statement here, and that is, when has college football ever been fair? When has college football ever cared about making things equitable and fair? Yes, what we have with this field is something that makes things a little bit tougher for some of the big boys. They're not getting completely fully rewarded the way that they think they should. But you know what? Welcome to life for everybody that has not been a powerful big brand in college football for the entire history of the sport. Welcome to it. It is like the great GIF. It's like that James Franco pirate GIF that's out there where one guy walks up next to him and he turns over to him and says, "First time?" That's the rest of the college football world right now, to Alabama, to the SEC. First time? Oregon? First time? Now, Oregon, I understand throughout the history of college football, doesn't have as much. They're in a bit of a different spot. But Oregon has been well-resourced and one of the bigger brands in college football for a while now, so they still somewhat fit into this discussion. But think back through college football history. When has college football ever had like a fair, equitable way for everybody to declare a champion? When has that happened? We used to literally have just people vote on who they thought was best. We had no championship game, no playoff, no nothing. You went to these bowls with different tie-ins from different conferences. You didn't really have a lot of control over where you were going or who you were playing. And then we would just say, hey, all you media guys that, pay attention to the game. But in those days when we were still just voting on champions, impossible to be like watching every game, right? There's no quad box on YouTube TV in 1994 to determine a champion. But that's what you did. You had to do it without actually watching these teams. How fair was that? That was the way that we chose the national champion in college football. Then we decided to move to, all right, well, here's a computer. It's going to take a bunch of numbers, chew them up, spit them out, and it will give you the top two. It'll give you the top two teams, and those will be who play for the national championship. I mean, like, okay, I guess maybe a little bit better in some ways, but I don't know. Ask 2011 Oklahoma State how fair that was, that we did it that way with a computer. So, yeah, when you do it that way, when you have people voting, you've got coaches voting. By the way, I didn't even mention, hey, yeah, obviously the AP is picking one national champ. The coaches have a poll. They'll pick another. These coaches with all their different biases and what conferences they're coming from and all of that, grudges that they may be holding against somebody else. You're leaving all that in their hands to pick the national champions. How many unfair things happened along the way with all of that? How many unfair things to teams that may not have been the bigger brand happened along the way? Just post BCS era. I said Oklahoma State, they get jumped by Alabama in 2011 by just minuscule percentage points according to the BCS formula. They get left out of the national championship game. Alabama gets to go to the national championship game. 2014, TCU is the 3 seed in the final, in the penultimate college football playoff rankings, the next to last. They beat Iowa State 55-3, and they drop 3 spots. They're out. Ohio State is in. Just last year. And this is even Florida State. Florida State is even a team that has had a lot of history, right? Florida State gets left out in favor of one-loss Alabama when they are an unbeaten. That seems pretty unfair. So wait, you're telling me Alabama, Ohio State, Alabama benefited from all these situations, and now Alabama's getting a bit of a bad break? Man, that is tough. That is tough. Tough. I do not feel bad at all. This is what the sport is. But the problem for everybody that's reacting poorly today is that it's swung around on the other side. They are not used to being the ones on the losing end of this. So welcome to what college football has been like for everybody else. If the bigger brands are going to get a slightly tougher path, or there's been a little bit of deferential treatment to some brands that typically would not get that, deal with it. And it will probably only be something that you deal with for a year or two max, because the guy that's got you, Overlord Sankey, he'll take care of it. It'll change, and you won't have to deal with it for very long. But forgive me for relishing in the fact that for once, the way this sport has always been conducted, you have to wear the shoe on the other foot, or the shoe is on the other foot in this scenario. And by the way, I would also tell you this is in some ways in your better long-term interest, because it will keep more interest in the sport nationally, which if you pull away and do your own thing, we've discussed this many a time, Big Ten, SEC invitational type of thing, you are going to lose a lot over time. There will be diminishing returns, and it will hurt you long-term as much as it is hurting everybody else.